Welcome to the Possibility Action Network. I'm your host, Possibility Man, Stephen Middleton. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today, we have Monique Williams. Monique ranks her roles as a wife and a mother prominently in her biographical profile. She's also a life coach with certifications in grief management and relationships. Monique is a community leader and the co-founder of Conduit Consulting, which provides services to people and companies worldwide. She's grounded in the three principles and understanding uncovered by Sydney Banks, a 20th century philosopher. Monique holds the vision to join others to help heal the world. Monique, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. This is a great energy. It's actually a pleasure to be here with you today. I appreciate you having me.
Well, look, it's a pleasure. I came across you on another YouTube channel. I'm not going to mention the podcaster, but I said, I got to get her on the show because of what you delivered. So I'm excited to have you here. Now, as I said in my introduction of you, that your family figures prominently in your biographical profile. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about your family, your children, and I think you've got something special going on today. So can you share with us?
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to make sure to set aside our time as sacred because I just appreciated the opportunity of coming on your show. I actually bless you because you're doing an amazing work in our communities, in our world. I appreciate everything that you're offering. You do so many different things, Doctor. So I just appreciate you first, sir. What I wanted to say was, yes, I love my family. They're like my foundation. So I've been married 26 years to my husband, happily married, and we have 4 children. Our children range from ages 28. I'm sure we got married when I was a teenager. And 24, I have a 28-year-old daughter. I have a 24-year-old son. We also have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. They're both girls.
Wow.
So as you can see, a lot of our rooms, our children are infectious in our homes. So this is some of their background. They come up with all types of things that they love to do. As a matter of fact, I was watching one of your really good shows on the network, and I saw that you had a young lady who was coding she was a woman coder. And that's what my youngest, my 15-year-old, she's a coder also. She took the class, a college course while she's in high school, and they just told her she was a natural. So I'll be contacting that young lady you had on your show here soon. Okay. But yeah, the family is the foundation of everything. Today, we're going with that 15-year-old, and all my children are active in the community and active in their schools, and they excel however they can. But I always say the first thing is the foundation. Their relationship with God has to be where we stand from, and everything else pushes forward, and we all just build each other up. So our 15-year-old is actually a trumpet player in the Marching 100 band. So we'll be going to the playoff football game today to cheer them on and, and rock with the band.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. So I know that you live in California now. Did you grow up in that state? And which city?
Actually, absolutely. I don't know if you know anything about California, but Sacramento is its capital. And I grew up about an hour away from Sacramento in California. This is my place. I do claim Arizona because that's where my husband was born. And we spend a lot of time there, and I love that heat and the family. But yes, my home is California.
Okay, that's great. So now, what were your aspirations in high school? Were you thinking about becoming a life coach early on, or what were your aspirations?
I was aspiring for and still aspiring for child psychology. I love your Dr. Middleton because that's what I'm working toward. I really am drawn to children. And I'm drawn to humans, period, but children are where my heart is. And so I've always inched toward child psychology. So that's what I'm working on now.
I see.
I'm currently in school.
Yeah, I think that's in you. You've just claimed it. So I think that's in you for sure. Now, you're in your 40s, I believe, or 30s or 40s, I believe now. So I
I'm
say,
actually I'm actually a woman who doesn't mind you asking. I'm a
okay,
happy 45.
okay, yeah. And I wasn't trying to be nosy or anything like that, but since the possibility of action network cares about three core topics, and
Yes.
one of them is emotional well-being and physical health, and the third is financial fitness. And with you, though, I want to talk about emotional health, emotional well-being. So I asked that question as a setup to ask you, um, what do you know about adversity, if anything? And if you want to pass on that question, that's fine with me. But what do you know about adversity?
Oh no, I love this energy here. And adversity for me is something that is a strengthening tool. Adversity is something that is needed in everyone's life. And it should be something that we prepare ourselves and our family for. And it's ironic that you would say that emotional intelligence, or the emotional portion of us that we have to take care of. That's what prepares us for that word, that dreaded word. And it shouldn't be dreaded. It should be that in life, we will have ups and downs. We can anticipate valleys, we can anticipate hills, and we must have something equipped within us to deal with when adversity shows up, and it shall show up. And I have endured my share of some great adversity.
Okay. So I know you're also a community, that you work in community development. What does that mean, that you work as a community, a leader, community developer?
Well, I just call myself a plain old volunteer.
Okay.
It happens like this. I show up to my children's school because I'm interested in what's going on at the school, and they ask, "Is there any volunteers who can volunteer on the school board?" And I look around, nobody's hand is raised. That means that would be you. I raise my hand. I do not have time, but some things you have to make time for in the community. And that's the way that I've been led into community leadership.
Yeah,
Is a lot of times it's just showing up and no one's helping. And I'm a helper. If I show up to any event, I am going to be the person who's running around assisting because it's what I do.
that's fantastic. I'm sure teachers and school leaders appreciate that from a parent to show up. But you also grew up around community development writ large in your area growing up. I mean, I think your mother worked as a community developer. Do you have any recollections of that growing up?
Yes, my mother is still working as a community developer. She is the icon that I look to and that I've been following in her footsteps. So I can remember back when I was 11 years old, growing up in high school, going through middle school, going through elementary. My mom drug us to community events, whether she was volunteering when she was a substance abuse counselor, or she was volunteering in the community just to serve meals during Thanksgiving. We have always had, I will never forget when I received my first job and I received a paycheck. I didn't know that people got paid for working because we had volunteered for so many years, just giving, just doing, that you just kind of show up and do. So yeah, I can remember very specific times where I went in the community with my mother, and she brought the children to volunteering.
Mhm. Okay. Is that what it inspired you to, put out your hand and say, I want to become a life coach? That is watching your mother working for change in your community?
Absolutely, totally. And I actually have a really good story to tell you about that. So my mother also is based out of the belief of Sydney Banks, which is, it's just an inside out living
Mhm.
where you believe that mind, consciousness, and thought is a foundation of many things, and you live your life from there. And it's a spiritual thing. It's just a belief.
Mhm.
Anyhow, so I work 60 plus hours a week.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. And my job, my 9 to 5 is what I call it, working in the prisons of California. And in that job, my mom called me one day and said, "Hey, there's a school that's about to begin on life coaching. I'd like you to take the course. It's 6 months." And I said, my mom has never asked me to do anything extra. As a matter of fact, she specifically asked me, can you please slow down? Can you please take some of that off your plate? So I was very, very excited to see who was running this program and what was this program about. So it was about a year ago that the young lady and gentleman's name are Rohini and Angus Ross, and they run the rewilding community. And I went to their training and was absolutely transformed. What it was for me was, as I showed up to the life coaching, it was called Rewilding Guide training to be a practitioner, it just spoke to everything I already was. Every single thing they taught, even from how important it is to listen to the person who you are assisting, the listening. I said, wow, I learned that a long time ago in church. You know, the listening, the sitting still and listening quietly, letting someone speak, and then connecting to that, connecting to allowing them to have a space to be heard. And so life coaching for me called for me. My mom was already doing it for years. She's a motivational speaker. We share a business together. She actually is the co-founder of Conduitsdoit It. She came up with the name and she's been doing it for a long time. Yeah. So I just jumped on her skirt tail because she's actually the matriarch of the family and she has been doing this for a while. So life coaching, I didn't choose, it actually chose me. And I already had clients, which I didn't know prior to me even starting. So now I have clients all around the world, thanks to the rewilding community, because everything is online. Everyone seeks you out all over the world. And that's how I found you. I was very pleased that you were in my inbox one day. And I was like, yes, we'll make this happen. And it didn't take long either.
Right. I appreciate that too. So, you've been around a community, a very dynamic, and let me use her name, Miss Beverly Wilson Hayes, Miss Beverly, as she is affectionately called, but you've been around someone who believes that people can change. You stepped forward to do training as a life coach because you believe, I'm assuming, well, let me ask you, do you think people can change? Can people grow? Can people get a knowing that transcends all other, challenges that they may face?
I will, number one, say I am an advocate for change. I believe in change. I know it to be true with every fiber of my being. Yes, change is the business of change is what's important because every human is evolving all the time. So we either stay the same or we change. And it's going to happen inevitably. So I believe in evolution and change and ensuring that when we're changing, that we're being very specific in our change and that we're targeting what needs to be changed. I was changing some things this morning.
That's very good. But I've been thinking about this and for the last couple of days, and I asked myself, how does a person know that they've heard from, you mentioned God earlier, that they've heard from God, or from this understanding of sitting in banks, people might say that they've heard from wisdom. And I have an example in my own life that I would like to share with you. And I want you to kind of see whether this is what you're talking about. Is that okay with you?
Please.
Okay, so when I went to college when I was 18, and in high school, I would hang around with some my friends, and we would try to smoke cigarettes. So I would be playing around with cigarettes, trying to smoke. And this was back in 1972. So the warnings about the dangers of cigarettes wasn't as prominent as they are now. And so when I went to college, I thought I would continue to try to learn how to smoke. And some of my friends, I think, were addicted. But then that December, my first semester in college, I went home and I grabbed a cigarette to try to smoke. And it was as if something, wasn't a voice, just something spoke within me. And it asked a question. And the question was, what are you doing? And the question was so profound, I could not answer that question. And I have never touched a cigarette since that time. That's about 50 years ago. So, and I said, I have heard something that really shook me to the point that I changed my behavior like that. Is that what change about, that type of knowing?
That is a beautiful example of hearing the voice of wisdom and being obedient to it. How many times when it was time for change that voice presented itself and we didn't listen? So that is a wonderful story. That is an excellent segue into change, because change comes from an opportunity, a choosing, a leading, and then we have to really make that change. How many times have we wanted our family members to change, and we're looking like surely this is the change that they will need, and it wasn't enough. They didn't heed the wisdom call, or they didn't hear the voice, or they didn't listen. So absolutely, that is an excellent example of what change really is. It's when we make that choice within ourselves to listen to the wisdom inside of us, that, like you referred to Sydney Banks, he called it universal mind. He actually called it Christ mind. He called it so many different things. Wisdom, I love that one. And I call it God, Jesus, whatever is our word for it. So thank you for even allowing us to speak on that.
Yeah, that's great. Because I'm beginning to, I mean, religion is one thing, but
Yes.
I think most people would have to agree that something is here.
Yes.
Something causes my breath to come out and go in. Something causes me to feel that I need to consume food, or so whatever you call it. I guess it's almost irrelevant, but something surely is here. So let me ask you this, Monique. So what are the, let's say that you have a client. What are the tools? I mean, what do you use to help a client to gain, let's say, a vision for himself, or whatever it is that the client wants to achieve? What are the tools that you take into the room, into the conversation?
Well, there's a lot of tools that are used in connecting with your clients. One thing for me is I use my gift of communication, which is silence and listening, deep listening. When someone's talking, I don't just listen to the words that are coming out of their mouth. I listen to how I feel when they're talking. I listen to what wisdom is saying while they're speaking. I really listen to what is needed in the conversation. So I would call myself an extreme subject matter listener. So that's one thing that should be the very first thing, is that I'm utilizing the gift of connecting with the person. Another thing is, once I establish what is needed, just what is needed, just the feel of it, then it's time to connect to, I just believe this, that all the answers that we need are inside of us.
Yeah.
I believe that. So a lot of times when I listen, and I've been doing this for years, I actually can hear the answer, because a lot of times we give ourselves the answer. And sometimes I just hear the answer through common sense wisdom. Like wisdom will speak like, all they really need is a good rest. They should get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You're staying up and waking up, going to sleep at this time and waking up at this one. The very first thing is some rest. And a lot of times we don't make space to hear ourselves, to hear the answers. We'll make appointments for hair, nails. We'll make appointments for other people to listen to them. We'll have appointments set for our teeth and for our organs, but we won't take time for our emotional health, just to hear ourselves talk, just to set a time frame. And that's what I'm in the business of. I'm in the business of pointing to any one person's innate health within themselves, and I'm in the business of listening and seeing what is needed and giving that. I told you asked earlier in regards to pleasure. It really, one of my gifts is I really want to please whoever I'm sitting in front of, and whoever needs to receive, they should be receiving that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said that. I mean, the person sitting in front of you knows. They may not be conscious of it, or may not want to recognize it, but you're saying that knowing is sitting across from you. And you as a coach, then you're able to simply spot and reflect back what you see in that person. It sounds like being a teacher. It sounds like being a teacher. I've had so much for many years. But there's something else, and it kind of kept me awake last night. I think I was thinking about this interview with you. And, I grew up as a Christian, and I still consider myself to be a Christian, not necessarily a religious person. You know, I'm going to claim
Yes.
I'm a Baptist, I'm a myth, whatever.
Oh,
I don't do that. But if you look at the essential teachings of the Christ, you know, I find something just went through my mind last night. It's like he said, I will never leave you or forsake you. I will be with you always, even until the end of the world. So that means that in every moment, if I can just accept that, I'm not alone. Is this, you know, I know that as a coach, you may not speak in terms of scriptural. I mean, sure, it depends who you're talking to. But is that a part of what you want someone to see, that they can never be separated from whatever this energy is?
You just connected the number one thing that fosters change, and it is for any one individual to sit in this present moment and know in the present moment. So we spend a lot of time with anxiety looking ahead, and we spend a lot of time looking back in depression. But to sit in this present moment of peace and to know, you just said the verse that agrees with that, you know, because everything is in this moment. So I spend a lot of time pointing to the present moment and pointing the way of how we can remain and know what we have right now. Because you're right, we have God right now in the present moment. And you know, one moment can be filled with just that knowledge, or it could be filled with the past, and now we're not in the moment, or it could be filled with the future, which is important, but we're not in the present moment. And we have to capture that present moment of what we have right now. And we do, he is with us.
Right. And I think if there's something unique about the understanding, and this is just me now, you can respond to this, of Uncovered by Cindy Banks, is that it reminds us that we can be practitioners. That is, you can be conscious of this present moment. You can be conscious of the danger of looking at a harmful past. And then when I thought about the scriptures last night, just kept running through me. It's like, you know, we can become practicing or practitioners of the teachings of the Christ. It's the same, at least for me. Last night, it may change tomorrow, but last night it was like, oh, this is the same thing. You know, we just can be practitioners of it. So what do you say? I'm just kind of rambling, but pardon me.
Well,
I'm still kind of drunk from last night.
I feel like you're reading my mail as well, because the other thing or realization that I came to, what occurred to me when I was in this rewilding guide practitioner training, was that I grew up in church my whole life. So I actually love the word of God. I'm not a big, and you said it, and it's just the way I feel. I've never been big on religion. I could go to just about any religion and still find my God where I go, because he's inside of me. So I'm in a relationship with him. So for me, when I went to this rewilding training, I tell you, if I didn't hear a Bible verse and God's voice through the whole thing, the whole Sydney Banks reopened up to me, because my mom found him when I was 14 years old. And I had been reference pointed to him, but I had never really taken him in on a deeper level as I did in the way he's explained in the training. So you are absolutely correct. My first realization was, wow, he even called the universal mind the Christ mind. He said his initial connection to how everything started with mind, consciousness, and thought was that he connected to God on a level that had never happened before for him. And then from that point forward, he shared it. And so to me, it really is a place to create for someone to share their belief, even if it's not called God. They may call it universal mind. They may call it wisdom, whatever it is called. Like you said, we share the same belief that I know who I'm talking about when I'm talking.
Right. And be comfortable with that. That's for sure. And, you know, I guess in our culture, I mean, in world culture, because we people have so many concepts about God, maybe a more neutral words would be helpful to some people.
They are, because we have to make room for others' beliefs.
Mhm.
Everyone can't believe the same thing. I mean, everyone is so different. So to connect on the Sydney Banks level is really a better level for me to connect with. And I was more open to it.
Mhm.
It was just a very, I don't know, it was a thing that was more opening. And then it opens the world to you because you have a vocabulary where you can connect and still feel the connection of wisdom.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to throw out a few words. Maybe I'm unique. Maybe everyone else is okay, and maybe I'm the only one who thinks that I struggle with certain things. So, I think that one of the challenges that individuals, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what language they speak, deal with moments of insecurity. Do you think I'm making this up?
Oh no. Insecurity is one of the number one things spoken about in the three principles because insecurity is a human, it's a human condition. You know, to be insecure, if you even think of the root word of secure, to be secure is to be confident, okay, in the moment, present. To be insecure is to be outside of that. It's so easy to wander outside of that and be insecure in so many different areas. I think the key is just observing and seeing the insecurity and then allowing it to move.
Yeah,
Because thoughts and insecurity, all these human conditions, they're like clouds. They move. We can capture them and sit them still, but actually, they keep on moving if we just acknowledge them.
right, right. So, and you mentioned you want to get your PhD one day in
Mm-hmm.
psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if you've had that. I know when I considered pursuing a PhD, if I want it, and then insecure thought popped up. Oh, you aren't good enough to get. So, well, here's what I'm trying to say is that, and here's what I want to say to the people who hear this podcast, and even if it's 50 years from now, is that in the middle of your God thought or your wisdom thought, this is for you. Another thought may arise, that insecure thought, and I want you to coach us through how to handle it if it arises for us.
Absolutely. So, if you're thinking that you want to get your PhD, then that's something that's already inside of you. I'm actually stealing your words. You said it yourself that it's inside of us. We thought it, that means it's possible. Possibility network, you know? And what's really important for us to do is pay attention to what's inside of us and pay attention. We have to audit our thoughts. And if our thoughts are telling us in any given moment, you ain't gonna never get that PhD, you're not even worthy of getting. Who do you think you are to think that you could get a PhD? Don't you know you don't finish anything? You know, and our thoughts can come up and speak to us. But really, what I do personally for myself is I have guards that sit at the gates of my mind.
Mm,
And those guards say what can and cannot enter. And when a thought is passing by and knocking on my door, no, thank you. I'm good. You go on, keep on going. You can't come in here. And we really have to audit our thoughts and allow what can and cannot enter. And
right.
then that's how we deal with insecurity. Insecure thoughts are just that. They're insecure and they can keep on moving. And we have actually the choice and the power to choose what thoughts come in.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, a second. I don't know. I don't want to call it. Well, let's say a second thing, a second issue that that arose in my life. I'll be candid, use myself. That arose in my life was a feeling of just self-esteem. Now, I was born in the early 1950s. I was born in the woods. I grew up picking cotton, plying with the mule. So I didn't feel very good about myself. So how do you coach someone? And once again, I'm your client. How do you coach me through letting go of that feeling of I'm not good enough?
Hmm.
I mean, it's close to
Well,
what we just said, but I want to
well,
try to make it.
it's a great question because it's what I deal with every single day. Every single day, if you're feeling like where you came from is defining where you're going to or where you're sitting, all you really need to remember is the truth. You know, you got the facts and then you have the truth. And the truth of the matter is, the facts may be that you grew up with nothing, or that you grew up in a place where maybe you were hungry and you didn't feel good about yourself growing up. Maybe you didn't have clean clothing. Maybe we didn't even have a toothbrush. But you know, the truth is that the moment we stand in today is the moment that we have. And we can look at those things that we've walked through as things that built us up and brought us to where we are right now. So in actuality, the things that make us feel insecure are the things that kind of hold us back from our past. If we really truthfully look at them and shed the real light of wisdom on them, they're the things that made us who we are.
Yeah.
Maybe we're gonna make sure we got 10 toothbrushes now in our
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
maybe we will always ensure that we have healthy food in our refrigerator, because maybe we didn't have that growing up. So we can always take and reflect back the things that are inside of us that are bringing those thoughts and feelings, and really I call them lies, and we can realize that those things can't stop us from our tomorrow. They can't even stop us from our today. We just have to take a look at them and let that settle, that hey, that's where we came from. It's a part of who we are. And I actually thank God for some of the things I've endured in my childhood, because they keep me grounded, and they make me look at life through the eyes of I've been there, and I can see that you've been there too, you know?
Yeah. That's great. There's a psychiatrist many years ago, early 20th century, who wrote some books on this subject. And then he wrote that feelings, this is a close quote, feelings are not facts. They'll lie to you, they'll deceive you, they'll tell you about dangers that are not there. Thoughts are not facts. So same thing, yeah. So that's great. So what keeps you grounded?
Yay, thanks for asking. So there was a book by McCovey, and in this book, I actually went to school at one time for substance abuse counseling. And that's a job that I did for about 4 years in 2 different prisons. And at that time, we had to read this book by McCovey. And in that book, it talked about the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual. And they actually acronymed it out as PIES. So for me, that synergy in PIES is my grounded. My grounded is that physically, I really make change to take care of myself. Intellectually, I keep myself engaged with whatever are the new things I'm learning and teaching. Emotionally, I make sure I'm a writer. I'm actually trying to publish some of my poetry. I have wonderful poetry.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading them.
Okay, absolutely. And spiritually, you know, for me, you can't be 100% spirit and then 1% of the other three. You really have to come 100% with all three of these, and that causes a synergy that grounds us. It's the thing that keeps us strong when times get hard. It's the thing that, you know, and I can never deny the fact that when things have gone wrong, my family has been a very big strength for me. My husband, his words of comfort, my mother still being alive at this point, family members, the strength of the family. But yes, our PIES is the foundation of what grounds us, what keeps us sturdy.
I like that a lot. And you reminded me, on last Saturday, we had our pre-Thanksgiving dinner at my house, because people want to do their own things on Thanksgiving Day. But I smiled the entire day. There were about 40 of us, little kids, middle, age kids, older folks like me. And it was just so beautiful to be surrounded by people you've known your entire life, and how much juice you get from that. So that's a great reminder. Yeah. So, the Possibility Action Network holds a vision similar to yours. Your vision in your profile includes, and I read it in the beginning, you said that you want to join others to help heal the world, one heart at a time. So you see yourself then as a servant. Is that about right?
Oh, 200%. That is my word.
Okay.
Service excellence. I am a servant.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think today, people, whether they admit it or not, people need to be around someone who cares, because so many, the ones who are always talking, I'm sure you would agree, they may they may be talking to hide something anyway. But then there are others, so many others that I've heard about, that I've encountered, who suffer in pain. So we need you. We need people like you in the world who are willing to serve.
Excellent. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I want to do, and I'm going to keep doing that.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that I haven't asked you?
I don't know. You asked some pretty great questions, but I did have a question for you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Just wondering, you are doing so many wonderful things on this earth. You have your hands in so many things, you've accomplished so many things. I read somewhere that you were a historian and that history is your thing. Can you just tell me, how did you come to love history?
Mhm. Well, you're very kind, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for those kind words. When I was in high school, I I gravitated toward the civil rights movement. Obviously, now I was interested in equality, and as a 14-year-old boy, I participating in marches because I just felt that people should be equal under the law. So I just had that feeling, I think, from the very beginning. I think I might have had it when I was in the cradle. And then I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to join Thurgood Marshall and work as a civil rights lawyer. And then I went to college, and in college, I met a historian. I had met some lawyers before, but I met a historian. I'll never forget his name, Dr. Michael Brandstatter. He had recently finished his PhD at Duke University, specializing in French history and teaching European history and Western civilization. And I took a course with him called Western Civilization, of all things. And it just swept me away. I mean, we talk about knowing something. I just knew. I mean, law was something that was still in the background, but I knew that I wanted to become a history major. I didn't ask anybody. I didn't seek counsel about it. I just knew that I wanted to study history. And fortunately, I mean, and I fell in love with history. And I told my students in my very first job that I love history. The history was my life, And in graduate school, Monique, I discovered that I could link history, U.S. history, with law. So that I pursued a PhD in U.S. constitutional law. And I was also able to formally study law at a very fine law school. So I was able to merge my first two loves as someone interested in academic stuff together as I matured. Thanks for asking me that and for allowing me to share that. And maybe, because the Possibility Action Network, just like you out there in the world, we want to turn people on to their possibility. So it's not about me. Hopefully 50 years from now, someone will watch you and I together and say, wow, these individuals say that it's possible, that they can overcome insecurity, that a person can learn that, we never know. But that's my dream. That's my vision today. So.
Well, that's excellent. So, in closing, I would kind of want to build off of what you just said. If we were going to tell the people anything and give them a great message to close with, we tell them how important it is that they follow their dreams and that life is so much easier when we're at peace in the moment, going with what we love and finding a way to put those two things together. What an excellent story of how your two loves came together, because it looks like, I don't know your age, but it looks like you're aging in reverse. I don't know what's going on over there, but yeah,
I got a secret weapon. I'll have to tell you about it one day. But you're very kind. Look, I enjoy this very much, and I hope we can do this again. There's some things I would love to see us do a summit, get other voices out there talking about possibilities, but also talking about a tool that we can, I'm calling it a tool, that we can use to help us, with our journey of life. So Monique Williams, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You have been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast with your host, Stephen Middleton. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. Today, our guest was Monique Williams, co-founder of Conduitsdoit Consulting firm. Monique, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.